You have a deadline tomorrow. You have known about it for 2 weeks, and right now, at this exact moment, you are doing anything except the thing you are supposed to be doing. You reorganized your desk, you made tea you did not drink. You opened the task 4 times and closed it again. And somewhere between the third distraction and the fourth, a familiar voice showed up. The one that calls you lazy. That voice is wrong. And the evidence against it has been building for decades. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It is not a character flaw. It is not what happens when someone does not care enough or want it badly enough. Procrastination is an emotion regulation problem. It is what happens when your brain encounters a task that triggers a threat response and instinctively reaches for relief. The avoidance is not the problem. The avoidance is the solution your brain invented. Understanding why it invented that solution is what changes everything. Here is where the story starts. Your brain has 2 systems running at the same time. One is ancient. It is fast, automatic, and emotional. Neuroscientists sometimes call it the limbic system. It processes threats and rewards in milliseconds. It does not think, it reacts. The second system is slower. It lives primarily in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain sitting right behind your forehead. It plans. It reasons. It understands deadlines and consequences and long-term goals. It is, in every sense, the part of you that knows better. These 2 systems are constantly negotiating. And for most tasks, the negotiation is quick and invisible. You need to eat. Both systems agree. Done? But when a task is attached to something threatening, the ancient system starts winning the argument. And it wins fast. What kind of threat? Not the kind your ancestors faced. Not a predator or a storm. The threats that trigger procrastination are psychological. Psychologist Fuschia Sirois at Durham University has spent years studying what she calls the emotional underpinning of procrastination. Her research found that procrastination is most likely to occur when a task is linked to one of several specific emotional threats: fear of failure, fear of judgment, boredom, frustration, resentment, or self-doubt. These are not abstract feelings. To your ancient brain, they register as danger. And when the brain senses danger, it reaches for the fastest available escape route. That escape route is whatever you do instead. It does not matter whether it is social media, snacks, cleaning, gaming, or staring at the ceiling. The specific distraction is almost irrelevant. What matters is that it works. It relieves the discomfort immediately. And your brain, which learns by association, takes note. Avoidance worked. File that away. Do it again next time. This is the trap. Every time you avoid the task and feel better, you are training your brain to avoid harder. You are not being lazy. You are being efficient. Your brain is doing exactly what it learned to do. The problem is that it learned the wrong lesson. Now here is something that might surprise you. Procrastination is not a modern invention. It is ancient. The Roman consul Cicero wrote about it. The Egyptian scribe Papyri complain about it. The word itself comes from the Latin procrastinare, which simply means to put off until tomorrow. Humans have been doing this for as long as humans have existed, which is the first clue that this is not a personal failure. It is a feature of the brain, a misapplied one, but a feature. The second clue comes from research by psychologist Timothy Pychyl at Carleton University, who has studied procrastination for over 20 years and arrived at a conclusion that sounds almost too simple. People do not procrastinate on tasks they find meaningful, manageable, and emotionally safe. Remove any one of those 3 qualities and the risk of avoidance rises sharply. Remove all 3 and avoidance becomes almost certain. Think about the last thing you procrastinated on. Was it meaningful to you personally, or did it feel imposed? Did it feel manageable, or did you not know where to start? Did it feel emotionally safe, or was failure or judgment attached to it? If you are honest, the answer to at least one of those questions is probably no, and that no is where the avoidance came from, not laziness. A very specific emotional signal your brain sent up, and a very rational response to it. There is a particular kind of procrastination that deserves its own attention. Researchers call it self-handicapping. You have probably done it without knowing the name. It is when you delay starting something so that, if you fail, you have an excuse ready. I did not do my best work because I left it too late. The procrastination becomes a shield. If the work fails, the procrastination takes the blame. Your actual ability never has to be tested. Psychologist Edward Hirt at Indiana University found that self-handicapping is most common among people with high levels of self-esteem that feel fragile or conditional, people who need to succeed in order to feel okay about themselves. The delay is not about time. It is about protection. This is why the standard advice on procrastination fails so completely. Just start. Make a schedule. Set a timer. Use a productivity system. These are not useless suggestions, but they treat procrastination as a scheduling problem when it is actually an identity problem, an emotional problem, a threat response problem. Telling someone to just start is like telling someone who is afraid of heights to just climb. The instruction is technically correct and completely ignores what is actually happening, what actually helps. The research is surprisingly clear on this. The first thing that helps is something called self-compassion. Not motivation, not discipline, self-compassion. A 2012 study by Wohl and colleagues at Carleton University found that students who forgave themselves for procrastinating on a first exam were significantly less likely to procrastinate on the second one. The act of self-forgiveness disrupted the shame cycle. And shame, it turns out, is one of procrastination's most reliable fuels. When you feel bad about avoiding the task, you feel bad every time you think about the task, which makes you want to avoid the task more. Forgiveness breaks that loop. The second thing that helps is reframing what starting means. Your brain is not afraid of doing the task. It is afraid of the emotional experience of beginning. The uncertainty, the exposure, the possibility of finding out you are not as capable as you hoped. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has talked about how the brain's threat detection system evaluates the beginning of unfamiliar or high-stakes tasks in exactly the same way it evaluates physical danger. The solution, backed by behavioral research, is to make the beginning so small that it triggers no threat response at all. Not "I am going to write the report," just "I am going to open the document," not "I am going to work out," just "I am going to put on my shoes." The action is trivially small, but the brain's threat evaluation of a trivially small action is also trivially small. And once you are in motion, the emotional resistance almost always drops. The third thing is understanding what the task is actually threatening, not just doing it, but asking, what am I afraid will happen if I start this? What am I protecting myself from? Is it judgment? Failure? The discovery that I care about this and still cannot do it? When you can name the threat loses some of its power. It shifts from a vague, heavy feeling to a specific thought. And specific thoughts can be examined. They can be questioned. They can be found to be inaccurate. Because most of the time, they are. The fear that your work will be judged and found lacking is almost always larger in your imagination than it is in reality. The fear that starting will reveal some inadequacy is almost always a story your ancient brain invented to keep you safe from something that is not actually dangerous. The deadline is real. The consequences are real, but the threat your brain is responding to, the one that is driving the avoidance, is almost always a projection. A guess about a painful future that your brain is working very hard to prevent you from discovering. And here is the thing about that. Your brain is trying to protect you. It always has been. Every distraction, every delay, every reorganized desk and undrunk cup of tea, these were all attempts to keep you away from something your brain believed would hurt. The avoidance was never laziness. It was always care. Misguided care? Care that has been costing you, but care. So the next time the task sits in front of you and you feel the pull towards something else, try to hear what your brain is actually saying. Not "I am lazy," not "I do not care." Something closer to "I am scared of what this might mean." And then, if you can, do the smallest possible version of beginning. Not for productivity, not to meet the deadline, just to show your brain that the beginning is survivable. Because it is. It always has been. You just forgot that somewhere along the way. The deadline is tomorrow. You have known about it for 2 weeks, And now you know exactly why you waited. That is not nothing. That is the beginning of something different.